Yo, 2010 Ford Fusion. Says I got three codes here, a P0171, bank 1, P0201, injector circuit opens, cylinder 1 misfire. Cylinder 1 on just about every vehicle is the farthest cylinder forward. So it'll be the rear bank. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just going to tackle the fuel injector right away because it's got a fuel injector code and a lean bank code, which means that one cylinder probably isn't getting any fuel, so it's running lean. Thankfully, I can get at it without taking the upper intake off. There's a connector right here. I can push in a tab and take that connector off. I have a couple of connectors I stole from something. I have an ohm meter here. Turn that to ohm. I can touch these two wires to make sure they're working. And it beeps and goes to 0, so it is. And I'm going to touch these two wires off. I should get about 15 ohms if this injector's good. And I got nothing. So the coil winding in this injector is probably absolutely no good. I can test it over here with a known good injector. 14.5 ohms. So yeah, I'm right. I'm going to need to take the upper intake off and the fuel rail. First thing I'm going to do is get this air horn off. 8mm or a regular screwdriver. A pair of pliers on this. And there's a gray tab I can push down on this. And these pop right out. Child-proof connector here. I gotta pull up on this red tab. Try not to break it. Push down on the connector, push in this tab and pull up. I can push in on this and these pop out. Hose clamp here. Clippy things on here. Get them out of the way. There was one on here, but it's already off. There's an 8mm mounting bracket underneath this throttle body right here. There's an 8mm mounting bracket on the top of the intake here. And it appears to be stuck in the hole. So I'll leave that in. Looks like there's 6 8mm bolts holding this upper intake on. Looks like a block heater's right here on the intake, but it's all crusted off. That should be everything with the exception of this PCV hose. You always want to squish this thing too and make sure it doesn't flatten out, because sometimes these rot out and they don't work so good. So I can just pull this straight up and take the hose out with it. And I'm going to do some rag stuffing because you don't want anything falling in these holes. I'm going to blow all this junk off too, so I'm going to stick a rag in here too. I don't want anything falling in my mass airflow sensor. So I'm going to give this a little blow job. I'm just going around the injectors. I don't want to disturb too much junk on this engine. It's pretty filthy. I don't see any fuel injection test port on this, so I can't bleed out the fuel system. I'm sure I could disconnect a relay of some kind and crank over the engine until it dies, but kind of late for that, so I'm just going to make a big filth-flaring mess. I have a 3/8 disconnect tool here. You stick it in here. I'm going to put a rag around all this because I'm going to make a big mess. You just stab it in here and push in on the connector at the same time, and you'll feel it click. And then just pull it out. I'm just going to pull it out ever so slowly. And that didn't squirt all over me. Amazing. Now I can disconnect the rest of these fuel injectors. Oh, yeah, sure. Wow, that was special. What the heck was that all about? Okay, I'm getting a little fuel injection bath here. Hopefully it doesn't burn to the ground. I always have fire extinguisher. 4 8mm bolts for this fuel injector rail. Now I think I want to ever so gingerly just pry up on this injector rail. Just a little at a time, just to loosen these injectors up. And they're stuck pretty good. There, I'm getting them. And wouldn't you know, these O-rings are busting. So I don't want them falling in the hole. I really got to watch that. Yeah, I think one of them fell in the hole. Okay, I've got them out. Looks like I'm going to have to go O-ring fishing. Thankfully the valves are closed. I gotta suck that out of there somehow. I got a blue point vacuum you use with compressed air. I black taped a hose onto it. I think I've done this before. Imagine that. I'm gonna look down in this hole with a flashlight, make sure I can get at it. I got the little bugger. All these holes are tapered. I'm going to try to clean them out a little bit without getting any crud down in the engine, hopefully. I'm just going to swab down the tapers. Just in case anything else fell down in these holes. I'm going to take a look down in here just to see what they look like. Looks like a Ford. I'm going to blow these out a little bit. Plug these back up. The only O-ring that stayed on, it looks like hell. Wipe these down a little bit. Fire the cylinder forward. That's number one right there. Just take a regular screwdriver and pull this tab out. Like so. Then just give it a wiggle. Roll it around and pull on it. It should come out. I got a standard fuel injector. That's the part number. It's got some funky caps on it. Get rid of those. I'm using 8090 for this. I like using this for putting injectors in because it's really thick. You just need a little bit. And there's little grooves on here, and I just got to make sure them grooves go in the injector. Just like that. I had some O-rings from a General Motors laying around. They should work. That way I don't have to go buy new ones. Same thing here, a little gear oil on them. People might tell you to use dielectric grease, but I like gear oil better. And I can gingerly stick them back in the hole. You want to make sure they're all lined up in the hole and just give it a wiggle and push down. Snug these down. I'm going to tighten these to 96 inch-pounds, which is 8 foot-pounds. I'm going to hit it with a razor blade too. I suppose you're supposed to put new gaskets on here too. I'm not doing it. They look good enough. It's a Ford anyways. This intake will probably be off about 5 more times in the next couple of years. Plug in that PCV hose. If any of these gaskets or seals do leak, it'll pull a lean bank code. Then I'll just have to take it all apart and figure it out. No big deal. The good book says 89 inch-pounds on these bolts. I'm going to start in the center and work my way out. I just want to snug them a little bit first. Same with this bolt, 89 inch-pounds will do it. Plug in some things and stuff. Surprised there's no safety clip on this thing. There probably was one at one time, but it's a Ford, so they probably had it off 5 times and lost it. Well, I think that's everything. I get to see if it works right. And it doesn't run like a Model T anymore. I let it run for about, I don't know, 3-4 minutes. I want to make sure that my fuel trim is okay, and you can see that the short term's negative and the long term's positive, and the numbers are about the same, so it's got to relearn its fuel trim, and as soon as it does, all that'll equal out and get really close to 0. So I know this fuel trim's good, I know my injector's working, and I know I don't have any intake leaks. So it's a job. Okay, bye.